Good afternoon. In this DCTA financial management series, we'll talk about fringe benefit rate. Next slide, please. The presenter is Michelle Minter. I'm Senior Financial Management Consultant for Corporate Facts. Next slide, please. So in this session, we'll talk a little bit about what is a fringe benefit. We'll define fringe benefits. We'll discuss the different methods for allocating fringe costs. We'll walk through calculating a fringe rate. And we'll also look at how to get your fringe rate approved. Next slide, please. To get started, we'll define fringe benefits. 2 CFR Part 200.431 defines fringe benefits as allowances and services provided to employees as compensation in addition to a regular salary and wage. These benefits can include various types of non-wage compensation. In order to seek recovery for fringe benefits from a federal award, the cost must be allowable. The cost of fringe benefits are allowable provided that the benefits are reasonable, meaning that it's reasonable if it is similar to what you pay on an open market, if it's required by law, it's reasonable if it's a part of an employee's agreement, or if it's the policy of the non-federal entity. Next slide, please. Let's look at some examples of fringe benefits. Some examples might be your paid time off, which includes all your compensated leave, your vacation time, sick leave, bereavement time. It also includes employee insurances, health, dental, and life, your contributions to pension or retirement plans, the employer portion of Medicare and Social Security taxes, as well as your unemployment benefits and workers' compensation insurance. Fringe benefits can not only vary from one employer to the next, but fringe benefits can also differ from one class or group of employees to another. Next slide, please. There are two options for budgeting and charging benefits to funding sources. We can use the direct charge methodology or the rate methodology. Next slide, please. So again, there are two options for budgeting and charging benefits to funding sources. Let's talk about the first method, which is the direct charge method. With the direct charging method, all benefit costs are tied to an individual and are budgeted using everyone's benefit package. This method will result in continual fluctuation of fringe benefit costs by employee. For instance, one employee may have individual health insurance versus another employee with maybe family coverage. With the direct charge method, tracking and budgeting fringe benefits can be time-consuming, and organizations often overlook the cost of compensated leave when using the direct charging method. And this can account for hundreds, if not thousands, of lost recovery of federal funds. Next slide, please. So now we'll take a look at the second option. And that option is the rate method. And with this methodology, a percentage or average of fringe benefit costs is used to assign costs to each funding source. And now this is done by pooling all fringe benefit costs together and by calculating the percentage of total benefits to annual salary, and then applying that rate to salaries to calculate the average cost of benefits for employees. Now, further in the presentation, I'll show you an example of how to apply that rate to salaries. But here we have an example of using the rate methodology to calculate a fringe benefit rate. In our example, we take our total fringe cost, which is $250,000, and we divide that by the total annual salary of 1 million. And you arrive at a fringe benefit rate of 25%. Once again, you may need to develop a fringe rate for each employee group. For instance, your union versus your non-union, police and fire versus your office staff, and maybe even full-time versus part-time. Next slide, please. Okay, let's look at some advantages of using a fringe benefit rate. One of the advantages is that it allows for efficiency. Using a fringe benefit rate will result in one charge instead of multiple charges for individual benefits. Another advantage is with budgeting. This will result in consistency between budgeting and charging purposes. It can also simplify budgeting negotiations with your funders. Another advantage is that it will help to increase recovery. The use of a fringe benefit rate can increase recovery, and that the funding sources are charged their full fair share of actual fringe benefit costs. Next slide, please. Let's look at the information that's needed to calculate a fringe benefit rate using the direct charge method. Now, some information that you'll need to gather is your list of employees and their annual salaries, the number of sick hours each employee will accrue per pay period. You'll need to know the number of vacation hours accrued per pay period for each employee. You'll need to know the number of holidays per year that's offered to the employees. You'll need to know the rate or dollar amount for unemployment insurance. You need to know the percentage of any retirement match. You'll need to know the medical, dental, and life insurance for each employee and the workman's compensation rate or percentage that's used. Now, the next step is to determine a dollar value for all compensated leave. And the first step to do this is to calculate an hourly rate for each employee. Next slide, please. Let's walk through the steps for computing a dollar value for compensated leave. The first step is to calculate an hourly rate. In our example, this employee is a full-time employee. Also, they have a bi-weekly pay system. So to calculate the hourly rate, you take their annual salary and you divide that by the number of hours worked per year. And in our example, the annual salary is $100,000. The number of hours worked per year is 2,080. You divide that, the 2,080 into the 100,000, and you get a rate of $48.08. Your next step is to assign a dollar value for your vacation time. Now, keep in mind that vacation time may vary from employee to employee. Vacation time is normally tied to the length of service. So you take that hourly rate, you'd multiply that by the number of pays per year. And in our example, it's 26 because they're biweekly pay. And then you take that and you multiply that by the number of vacation hours accrued per pay. So in our example, that would be the hourly rate of $48.08. You multiply that by 26 pays per year, and then you multiply that by 6, which is the number of vacation hours that this employee will accrue per pay period, for a total of $7,500. The next step is to assign a dollar value to your sick time. You take that hourly rate, you multiply it by the number of pays per year, and then you multiply that by the number of sick hours accrued per pay. So for our example, that's $48.08 multiplied by 26, which is your number of pays per year, and then you multiply it by 2, which are the number of sick hours that are accrued per pay, for a total of $2,500. Then the next step is to assign a dollar value to your holiday. You take that hourly rate, you multiply that by the number of holidays per year, and then you multiply that by the number of hours worked each day. So in our example, is you take that hourly rate of $48.08, you multiply it by 12, which is the number of holidays that the employee will receive per year. And then you multiply that by 8, which are the number of hours that that employee normally works a day, for a total of $4,615. Next slide, please. Now, once you've calculated all of that information and you populate your spreadsheet, this is what your spreadsheet will look like once we plug in all that data that we gathered from the previous slide. And I just want to call your attention to the numbers across the top. They'll look familiar to you. The 20,080 are the number of hours that a full-time employee would work. 26 are the number of pays that that individual will receive throughout the year. The number 2 are the number of sick hours that are accrued per pay. The number 12 represents the number of holidays that the employees are given each year. And the number 8 represents the number of hours that you work in a day. So once you plug in that information, as I mentioned, this is what your spreadsheet will look like. And you'll come up with dollar amounts for each employee, for each of your areas of compensated leave, your vacation time, your sick time, your holiday time. You also list out your normal fringe benefit costs, your medical, your unemployment, retirement, your Medicare, workman's comp, to arrive at a total fringe cost. Next slide, please. So now on this slide, we'll walk through the calculations of a fringe rate using the data from our spreadsheet. And what I've done is I've taken the information from the very first employee, and it appears across the top of your screen so that you can see where we're pulling these numbers from. I also like to call your attention to the fact that we have 2 examples on this slide. The example on the left side represents a fringe rate if you include compensated leave. The example on the right side of the slide represents your fringe rate if you exclude compensated leave. But we'll walk through both examples so that you see the difference in including or excluding your compensated leave. So the first step is to figure out what your total fringe benefits are. And once again, you list your PTO/compensated leave, which is 14,615. And as you see up top, that number is represented under the total comp absences column. You then figure out what your payroll taxes are. And we've combined all those taxes, your Medicare, your Social Security, and then your unemployment tax, but for a total of $7,744. You then pull out your retirement, which is $4,000, your medical insurance for $8,500, and then your workman's comp for $86. You total that down, you get a total fringe benefit cost of $34,945. Your next step is to prepare your allocation base. And to do that, you take your salaries and wages, your total compensation, you back out all of your PTO, all of your compensated leave, to arrive at a total salary less PTO. Now, the reason that you back out your PTO is because your rate, your benefit rate your fringe benefit rate can only be applied against hours worked. And once again, those are compensated leave hours, so we have to take those out. So next, your step would be to compute your fringe benefit rate. And to do that, you take your total fringe benefit cost of $34,945, divide that by your total salaries less your PTO of $85,385. And you arrive at a fringe rate of 41%. Next, we'll take a look at the example to the right side of the slide. And once again, we're going to walk through the exact same steps. The only difference is that compensated leave isn't factored into these calculations. But once again, you calculate what your total fringe benefit costs are, which are your payroll taxes, your retirement, your medical insurance, and your workman's comp. And you arrive at a total of $20,330. The next step is to prepare your allocation base. Once again, you take your salary and wages of $100,000, you back out your PTO / compensated leave of $14,615 to arrive at a total salary less PTO of $85,385. You then figure out, you compute your fringe rate, which is your total fringe benefits of $20,330 divided by your salary of $85,385. And in this example, you arrive at a fringe rate of 24%. Next slide, please. Now, in this slide, we'll look at how to apply that fringe rate to your labor cost to determine total compensation. And also on this slide, we have this calculation we're using the two different fringe rates that we computed. One is with your compensated leave, the other is without compensated leave. So to start this, you take your total compensation, which excludes your PTO expense. You apply your fringe rate that you calculated in the previous slide to arrive at a fringe benefit amount. And once again, one number excludes the PTO and the other includes PTO. Now, once you get that figure, you then combine your labor costs and that fringe benefit amount to come up with your total compensation, including fringes. And if you've used compensated leave in our example, that dollar amount is $120,393. And if you've excluded your compensated leave, your total compensation is $105,877. Now that's a difference of about $14,516. And as you can see from this example, you're losing $14,516 in lost recovery of funds for just one employee when you don't factor in your compensated leave into your calculation for your fringe rate. Next slide, please. Now, once you've calculated your fringe benefit rate, the next step is to get approval for that rate. And in order to get that rate approved, the organization should seek approval for that fringe benefit rate in its grant agreements. And the methodology that's used to calculate your fringe benefits should also be included in that grant agreement. Next slide. And in our next slide, we list several resources that you can look to if you need additional help or guidance with calculating a fringe benefit rate. And this concludes our presentation.